What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and today we're back with another Friday stream where the community gets together and chats about whatever interesting topic that I've concocted for the week. And this week I don't really have a topic because I've been super busy with work and trying to find a place to live and all kinds of normal domestic duties that I have not actually had time to really come up with a good topic. So what I figured we'd do today is just have a nice little open chat stream where you can bring up whatever topic you would like to talk about or ask questions, or maybe send me links to cool stuff to check out. Now, in terms of like topic area, it should be related to this channel, obviously. I know that that's kind of a risky thing to ask for. But also at the same time, I'm planning to try to hack a little bit on a couple things that I am trying to do for the channel. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But before I get started on that, I would like to say hello to the people who have shown up so far. The Cashew Trader, Yanis, Ronnie, Retracing, Richard Davis, GNU Ninja, Daigo, CDR255, Gan, Crazy Chicken, Palms, Gavin. Yeah, busy indeed. I seem to never have any time anymore to do the more fun things about messing with my computer and that sort of thing. Actually, that's not true. Last weekend I did spend some time working on my Geeks Home configuration and trying to polish my Stump WM config a little bit. I haven't actually used that config here yet. I've got it synced, but I haven't, enabled it. So I'm not using the latest stuff that I worked on this weekend, but I have been doing a little bit of work here and there because I'm trying to get my Geeks Home configuration a little bit more fleshed out and try to replace a lot of what I was doing before with GNU Sto and my .crafter.el library. So hopefully I'll have some more status to report on that fairly soon, because I think it will be interesting to talk about, the process of migrating a configuration to Geeks Home, because it's not necessarily the most straightforward thing in the world, but it's super powerful whenever you do it the right way, I think. Also hello to Philip and Thokal and Pakazi. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. You can never know anymore. On the internet, everybody has very interesting names, whether they're real or invented. So, updates. So what I will tell you is that something that people have been asking me about for a while is actually going to happen sometime in the near future. I will be doing a stream with Protesilau Stavru. I sent him an email last week, and he's interested in collaborating on a stream, but I didn't have time this week to actually get back to him on when or what we'd be doing. So I can't tell you the exact date for when that will be, but it will be happening very soon, I would say. And also, I've been planning the video series that I want to get started on, the series, the plural form of that, because there's multiple that I'm going to try to do. Nothing really concrete to say yet about that, but as I've been saying, I'm definitely going to do a series on Guile Scheme, and also tie that into working on more in-depth content on GNU Geeks, because I think that, this year I made enough videos to get people started with using the package manager and also doing a basic system installation using the non-geeks repo, which gives you the full Linux kernel. But I didn't really tell you how to use Geeks. I just told you how do you get it set up. So this year we're going to try to go more in depth about how you actually set up a system configuration, how you can sort of tweak things, maybe switch out the login manager, use a different window manager, all these kinds of things that you might want to know how to do. And also get more in depth about how you can write your own custom services or service configurations and package configurations for Geeks, because when you start using Geeks, you realize that there's certain pieces of software that are not available that you might want to use. So combining the information about Guile scheme plus how to write packages or package definitions in Geeks, and also how to write service definitions for things you might want to run in the background, like let's say, you know, like a web server or an IRC bouncer or something like that. We're definitely going to try to cover that kind of material next year, as well as covering how to set up your configuration with Geeks Home, which is pretty similar to what you would do for system configurations. So that's a good thing. We can kind of transfer that knowledge across once we learn some more about that. And then another thing I'm going to do, I'm not exactly sure what the order of all this is going to be, but I want to do a series about how to learn Emacs Lisp through writing an Emacs config from scratch. And it's going to be, I've been talking about this off and on, sort of I had this idea I want to do sort of the Emacs from scratch 2.0 series and do it a lot differently than I did the last time. So the idea would be to build up an Emacs configuration from scratch without using external packages, but actually learning how to just configure Emacs using the basics of Emacs Lisp, and then gradually build up to more and more, I wouldn't say complex things, but, you know, build a full configuration as much as we can without having to resort to external packages, and doing some customizations along the way. So I think that would be pretty fun. Let's see. Krishna says, hello, K. Johnny from IRC here. Hi. Rhinus says, made it just in time. By the way, I'm still improving my Common Lisp game. That's great. Common Lisp is definitely worth learning. Crazy Chicken says, advent of code in Emacs Lisp today. I'm not doing advent of code. I mean, I don't have anything against advent of code, but I mean, I'd rather just spend my time writing something that I want to use rather than just, you know, doing exercises. I will say though, if you're trying to learn a new programming language, advent of code is a great way to study that. Emacs bushcrafting. I'm not sure what that means. Kakashi, hi. Rakesh says, have you discussed anything on STEM in the US as an initiative to involve younger people in technology-based fields? How can they be a greater force with Emacs? How can more females be involved? I don't really have a good answer for that, but what I would say is, I think Emacs is a great way for people to learn how to code. However, I don't know that trying to tell someone, hey, there's this cool program called Emacs, and you have to write code to make it do more than just look like a 1990s text editor. I don't think that's necessarily the right way to get people to start with that. However, if there are people who are interested in Emacs for its own merits, then it would be a great way to teach them how to code, because Emacs configuration is code. Let's see. Gavin says, I ran out of time for advent of code. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, if you have other responsibilities and you don't have time to spend on trying to solve those problems every day in the month, then yeah, you'll get behind. I guess, does that like disqualify you from continuing if you miss it one day? I don't really know how it works. Ellis says, advent of code in F#, let's go. No, I'm not gonna do that. Hey, Jafer. Canoe Ninja says, I had Geeks running on an Asus EEPC netbook with only 2 gigs of RAM and 2 gigs SSD. It was painful, but possible. Yeah, well, problem you'll have there is if you have to compile any packages, because 2 gigs of RAM is probably not enough to compile a browser, and it's going to take forever also, probably. Gavin says, I did a ton of advent of code in Common Lisp, learned a ton at least. Yeah, that's definitely worth it. Ellis says that he's doing advent of code in F#, 2020 so far. Nice, good job. Seabass says it doesn't disqualify you from continuing. That's good to know. Gon says, bushcraft is a use of and practice of skills, acquiring and developing knowledge and understanding in order to survive and thrive in a natural environment, i.e. Emacs Lisp only. Yeah, basically that. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Seabass says, you can still do the previous year's advent of code. I mean, who sits down and like comes up with these things? Are they different every year? It must be kind of a pain to come up with all these little puzzles. Okay, you can just do them whenever. Cool. Let's see, any other updates? Nothing that I can really think of that's worth talking about. Was it this week that happened? I think on Monday I actually got what amounts to well, it's like the first step towards permanent residence in Greece, which is nice. I can actually live and work here legally without fear of getting kicked out of the country for staying here too long, so that's great. So now I'm definitely going to be here for a while, which is good. Stefan says, thinking about trying straight.el this weekend. Are you still happy with it? Yes, I am happy with it from the perspective that it makes it a lot easier to install packages that come from Git repos that aren't on Elpa or Melpa. So Straight's really good for that. I primarily use Geeks to manage my Emacs packages, but I have to pull in some packages from Git repos because they're not in Geeks yet or not in Melpa or Elpa. So Straight's good for that. Yanni says, wait for the summertime. Oh, I'm very familiar with Greek summertime. I'm not worried about that. Extremely hot, I know. I'm from Mississippi, so it gets hot there too, and very humid. Jafer says, have you ever checked out Emacs Nano? I really love the aesthetics, but have never tried it out. I think it looks extremely cool. I haven't actually tried it yet because I just haven't bothered, but I think that the author, Nicolas Roger, is doing some really cool work there with, experimenting with a more modern look and feel for Emacs, and also doing some really cool stuff like the SVG icons package that he released. Oh, there's my stream key. That's great. So let's see. Roger. What's it called? SVG icons. So yeah, this is not okay. Let me get links to both of those, but this is something worth looking at because it's pretty cool. I haven't tried this library yet, but it looks super useful. So, man, my zoom is not set to the right level by default here. Let me jump to this section here. I'm going to drop some links in. Just whatever we come up with for discussion today, I'm going to drop them in here. And let me grab. Is Nano in here? Nano Emacs. Yeah, I haven't tried Nano Emacs, but if you go take a look at the screenshots on the repo, looks super nice. I mean, very minimalistic and kind of has some nice, help text at the bottom. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool, customization of Emacs. Why did it not capture the... that's why. Okay. Thanks, Qt browser. Let's do that. Whoa. What? Come on, give me master, at least. Why did it do that? I want... Just take me to the repo. Okay, I'll just edit it manually. Who cares? There we go. Krishna asks an interesting question. Can we have the YouTube join button enabled, please? It becomes difficult to pay money internationally, but through YouTube it's much easier. I've actually been thinking about that recently. I hadn't turned it on before because YouTube takes like 30% of everything that comes through for creators, but I had thought about actually turning that on because I imagine some people will probably find it easier to do it that way. So I'll do that. Thanks for reminding me about that. Let's see. The Krister says, I finally managed to reach the stream almost on time. Well, this is pretty much on time because we're not really doing much right now. Philip K says, Nano is such an unfortunate name considering that GNU Nano exists. Yeah, it is a little bit unfortunate from that perspective. I mean, that was one of the first thoughts I had whenever I saw that. Yanni says, I'm pretty sure the guys will be happy to chat with you. I'm not sure who we're speaking about, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that. Gabriel says, hi from Argentina. Hello. Gon says, I gave StumpWM a try using parts of your config from last week. Now the help dialog is borked. It shows stuff like 5ACN without the command proper. That is weird. You might have to send me your configuration so I can take a look at it. Or if you have a link to it that you can send me, I might be able to pull it up here and tell you what I can find from my limited knowledge. I know Gavin's here. Gavin could probably point something out too if he notices anything. Ellis says, check out notebook mode too. Is that another thing that Nicholas did? Let's see. It's not here, but maybe if I go, come on. Repositories. There it is right there. The new Emacs notebook mode. I think I heard about this, wow, 22 hours ago. That looks pretty sweet. Something worth looking at if you like these sort of alternative looks to Emacs. Very work in progress. I'm guessing that was mentioned on Reddit. Hey, Marjuk. Palm says, would you cover some solutions to deal with editing large org mode files? Well, I'm not sure what the right solution would be in general to editing large org mode files, but I know there is a Emacs VLF package, which is for very large files. I think that's something that will help with the large file issue. I'm not sure what it does. I'm guessing it just sort of like loads only part of the file at the same time. But that's something that you could look into for large files. Let's see. Let me just paste that in. Okay. Work in progress Jupyter style thing for org mode. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Definitely notebook mode would be something that a lot of people would be interested in. But I just have not tried it yet. I don't know much about how it works. Gavin says there's a PR to fix that as an error in master. Well, that's interesting that it's got that kind of key binding issue. Gabriel says, I think it is intentional for Emacs Nano to look like Nano with the info of the commands. You might be right about that, actually. All right, let's see. But yeah, definitely check out Nicholas Rosier's packages, because I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that he's been working on. Pushing the state-of-the-art forward, I think. Oops. Ellis says that Ticosaur edits org files that are larger than anyone else here is likely to use, so it'd be good to ask him how he edits them. Yeah, that, or maybe go check out his configuration to see if he mentions it. Ticosaur Emacs config. I think I have it here, right there. Wow, that's so zoomed out. Oh, there we go. Apparently he's got some media queries in there. That's good. All right, let me see. Large. Very large files. Here you go. So he's using VLF apparently. So if you want to know how Ticosaur is doing it, we can do this. Philip K says, still a potential Nano emulation mode now needs a different name. Maybe so. Philip K, are you PCal? Let's see. Jafer says, I was writing papers with one line per sentence because it made VC nicer, but this made Emacs slow. Finally found a setting called BiDi paragraph direction and BiDi inhibit BPA. Interesting. Well, nice to see you here. Marduk says, have you tried Meow yet? I've been hearing people talk about that, but I have not actually looked at it. So Emacs Meow. It's another modal editing mode, I think. Yet another modal editing on Emacs. So let me drop the link for that one as well, in case anybody wants to check it out. I think there was some discussion about that on Reddit this week. Wow, they even have a whole org set up for that. Meow modal editing. So it's not only on Emacs, it seems to be also on... interesting, I'll have to look at that. On Sublime Text. What is elisp check repo? Now I'm getting into the weeds. Okay, it's a fork of something else. So basically, a way to do testing of your Emacs Lisp code on GitHub Actions. That's cool. Okay, let's go back to the original point. So this package aims to blend modal editing into Emacs with minimum interface with its original key bindings, avoiding most, if not all, the hassle introduced by key binding conflicts. Minimal configuration to build your own modal editing. Lightweight with minimal dependencies, minimal number of keys occupied. Minimize modifier usage, inspired by God mode, also, I suppose, by Doom Emacs and Spacemacs. Selection as top tier object, compatible with vanilla Emacs key map. See, that would be something that's kind of nice, because one thing people say is that, you know, with evil mode, it's not so easy to use the default Emacs key bindings if you want to, unless you jump to either Emacs state or insert state. Let's see, learn Meow in 15 minutes. I'm curious to see what it has to say for itself here. Motion state is the default state for special modes like dired, proced, etc. By default, motion state has no key bindings except space is used as the leader key. Okay. Original command on space can be accessed by... The original command on space can be accessed by space. What is the original command? Oh, whatever was bound to space originally can be accessed by space. Okay, fine. Users may want a consistent key bindings for movement globally. For example, KJ to move up and down. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. The original command on KJ is not accessible. To solve the problem, meow introduces a simple solution. Any key binding you define with blah, blah, blah. The overwritten command will be bound to the key with the hyper modifier. So if you want to set J as next line globally, meow motion overwrite define key J next line, meow leader define key J hyper J. Well, that's kind of interesting if it lets you basically just set, you know, global keys for movement while retaining most of everything else. What's the chat saying? I see some movement here. Okay, nothing about this specifically. This seems interesting. Keypad is a state used for executing commands without modifier keys. Entering keypad state by pressing one of the following keys in normal or motion state. Space, X. Start with Control X. Okay, is that like God mode in this case? You just press space X and then whatever is in that prefix map, you can start pressing the letters for it. That's what it sounds like. Beacon. Anyway, kind of a different model. Interesting idea. I don't know if I would be able to easily switch over to something like this because I'm so ingrained into the evil mode setup. But if people try this out, let me know on IRC and Discord about it. Some known folks here contributing to it. I see IdeasMan42 and CoHex. I'm not sure how they pronounce their name. I think I've seen Dog Looks Good on something else as well. But anyway, that's pretty cool. Definitely let me know if you know more about that package. Let's see. Rahul says, why don't you cover Emacs NG here? I think it's getting in the right direction. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm skeptical of Emacs NG, to be honest, because it's kind of like shoehorning in a separate execution engine. And I don't feel the need for that, but it does have the ability to do some rendering for web pages. So I don't know. I mean, that part could be interesting, but I haven't actually seen it in action yet. So, and I'm pretty sure it's not available in Geeks. So let me actually just check that out really quickly. So Geeks, search Emacs NG. Pretty sure it's not in Geeks. So it's not super easy. Oh. No. Different thing. Emacs Engine X mode. Okay. So yeah, not something I can actually try out very easily. But, you know, one day maybe I'll give it a shot, especially if people, you know, keep telling me that it's worth trying. Let's drop the link to that in case anybody's interested in checking it out. Let's see. Marduk says for Doom folks, there's a Doom meow package. That's cool. Philip K says still fine. Nano Emacs is not a mode, but a collection of configuration files. Those define some minor and derived modes, but it's not a nano mode. Yeah, it's definitely the case that nano mode is more like a config distribution to some degree. I don't know that it's really like, you know, on the level of Doom Emacs, but it is like a configuration you have to load up. Antonio said, I tried Nano Emacs, but had some problems with the default font configuration. They have proportional fonts everywhere. Probably my fault. Finally, I ditched it. Yeah, I don't know if you have to have like specific fonts to use for that. T says, do you use desktop save mode? I do not. There's stuff like that in Emacs that I don't use that probably would be helpful if I did use them, but I'm not sure that I'm the right target audience for desktop save mode because I tend to not have very many window configurations. I just have like a plain full screen Emacs frame without anything other than maybe like a split at the bottom for a shell. So I don't really need desktop save mode that much. I use projectile or project.el and perspective.el pretty heavily to like keep buffers separated. So I don't really need desktop save mode very much. Gavin said, ever heard of Distel? It has some really cool integration between Emacs and Erlang. Nope, this is the first time I've heard of that. So let's see. Emacs Distel. Not heard of that at all. Emacs Erlang IDE. That's cool. I've not looked at Erlang since probably 2005 or something. Library for Emacs to Erlang communication plus a suite of tools built on top of it. Sounds like it would be something akin to a REPL where you could, interact with a running Erlang process. After the install procedure, you'll have an extended Erlang mode anytime you edit Erlang files. You can do completions, evaluating expressions in the mini buffer, refactorings. Cool. So it's like a full IDE setup there. That's kind of cool. I haven't heard of that one, but I'm sure there's some people out in the System Crafters community who are interested in Erlang. So let's just drop that in case anybody wants to take a look at that at some point. Let's see. They do say it's faster than Evil mode. Yeah, I don't know exactly how it would be faster unless just the way that they implement their hooks and stuff are faster, I guess. Krishna says, I would like to reintroduce zafly keys in this context. Yeah, I know you brought that up in IRC the other day. So zafly keys. So I don't know how familiar people are with Zali or Shali. Maybe that's the right way to pronounce that. But he's been around in the Emacs community for a very long time and has a pretty in-depth website talking about Emacs Lisp and a lot of stuff about Emacs in general. And I believe he also came up with the Ergo Emacs configuration and also Shafly keys, which is basically an alternate key mapping in Emacs that's more supposed to be more ergonomic, basically. So instead of using the default Emacs key bindings, you use a different set that should be easier to reach, I guess. And apparently it supports various different keyboard layouts too. So if you use a sort of a non-standard keyboard layout, this might work pretty well for you in theory. But I have not used this. I have used Ergo Emacs in the past, and I think that the first time I got sort of really heavy into Emacs, probably around 2012 or 2013, I used Ergo Emacs because I did not like the built-in vanilla Emacs key bindings, and I liked Ergo Emacs, but then I eventually started trying to learn just the built-in key bindings instead. So let's put that link in here in case anybody wants to try it out. Ellis says, none of them are really better, they're just different. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's just another way to think about the same thing. And, if you're the type of person who understands the value of modal editing, but you never really got used to using Vim, so you don't really know what the Vim key bindings are, then maybe this is something that you could use to build your own modal editing configuration. There's a few other packages for that for Emacs that I can't remember at the moment. I know Gavin was looking at some of them. Let's see. Crazy Chicken says, I would like to see a unique take on... I do like to see a unique take on key bindings rather than a re-implementation of Vim. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good to have some new options out there. Ellis says, Emacs NG is still a bug-ridden fork. Well, that's the thing about trying to plug two different platforms together, I suppose you could say. If you're trying to, plug in a different runtime into Emacs, there's going to be all kinds of translation issues between both platforms. Like, data types don't match up, or, the threading system on one doesn't match up with what happens in the other. I mean, there's all kind of chances for things to go wrong. So this is why I hesitate to depend on anything that tries to mix two different systems together. Because I've tried to build things like that myself before in the past, and it often becomes a headache. PSP says, when are the EXWM hack sessions starting again? I would like more people to live contribute to open source. Yeah, that's another thing I'm going to start doing in 2022. I'm going to have a more regular streaming schedule for programming streams, both for this channel and for the other channel that I've been talking about off and on. But I need to get into a stable living situation first so that I have like my full desk set up and I have the space and the ability to do streaming multiple days per week. So right now I can't actually do it. I mean, I could try to do it, but it probably won't be very comfortable to do it right now. But yeah, I definitely want to get back into doing some hack session streams just because there's a few different things I want to work on. And basically what I have in mind is like there's a variety of projects that I want to do for system crafters or that are related to system crafters, and just having, you know, maybe 2 other streams per week potentially to work on those things, just you know, coding and, you know, chatting with people in the stream might be pretty fun. So I want to try to do that maybe early next year whenever I'm finally set up in a place. Gavin says it's kind of like CAC if you ever tried that. I'm guessing you're referring to Meow. I have not tried that one. Let's see. Krishna says, why do you have an ohm symbol in your prompt? It's pretty cool. Well, it's the ohm character it shows up in Buddhism, and, you know, I try to remind myself to be calm, but then the reality is it's there and I just forget that it's there, so it doesn't remind me of anything, honestly. Let's see. Long says, I'm using Doom Emacs in NW mode, and it doesn't look good like GUI mode. Okay, so basically the terminal mode. Clipboard, color, status bar, do you have any solution to improve it? Set your terminal to 256 color mode and use probably some of the Doom themes, because I think that the terminal themes have some of them, or maybe all of them have 256 color themes. That will make the theme and the colors in the terminal look better, but then also you need to have possibly a font, like one of the nerd fonts that has all of the symbols in it. So nerd fonts. These are, let me make sure I'm pulling the right thing here. Yeah. So these have a lot of little icons and stuff in them that you can use in your config to make things look more interesting. I'm not sure exactly if it would work in every terminal, like the more like traditional terminals in X probably won't use these, but I think that a more quote unquote modern terminal would do that. So that's a way to do that, I think. Hey, Sicp. Shaper says, have you checked out the Julia programming language? I'm considering learning it to replace R, and recently Techosaur made a org mode parser written in it. I've heard Julia takes a lot of inspiration from Lisp, but I've also heard that it doesn't go far enough to actually really inherit the spirit of Lisp. So I'm not really the target audience for Julia, I guess. So I haven't really had any chance to look into it. Thanks, Ashraz. I didn't see what that message was. Oh, it looks like we've got some spammers coming in. Great. So let's see. There's a good book called Learn You Some Erlang for Greater Good for those wanting to learn some Erlang. Yeah, definitely. Erlang is an interesting message. I see the words whenever I'm turning my head, and the word just comes out of my mouth. Erlang is a very interesting programming language because it has a focus on fault tolerance and concurrency, which, if you know anything about writing code with concurrency, fault tolerance is probably not the first thing that comes out of your mouth. So interesting language for sure, but it's also one of those languages that has more non-standard or maybe cryptic looking syntax that makes it harder to get into, but very worth your while to take a look at it, I think. Martine says, Julia is nice. Who do you use R over Python? Maybe you're asking someone else there. Gavin says, I saw they had some interesting ideas for async processing. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Japer says, okay, yeah. Gavin says, not gonna lie, I see Emacs NG as a move in the wrong direction. If we wanted to start appealing to JS devs implementing, we should do something like what NeoVim did, implementing an event loop in Vim. Yeah, I think I think if one of the primary reasons that you're trying to have Emacs NG is to make it easier for people to write packages for Emacs, I feel like that's just like the wrong way, because it's already easy to write Emacs packages with Emacs Lisp. If you want to write packages in JavaScript, there's plenty of other JavaScript-based editors that you could do that for. So I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing the people who have put a lot of effort into Emacs NG. It's just so far I don't really understand the point. You know, if another idea is like, if you wanted to make Emacs have better concurrency support or better, you know, multi-threading or whatever, maybe there's other ways to do that as well. I don't know. Ellis says they're just doing too much without any idea of what they actually want to do. Well, I think, you know, there's people get ideas, to, you know, ambitious ideas to do certain projects, and I think it's good to have specific use cases for why you're doing something, or like a specific problem you're trying to solve that everybody feels enough that they would really get behind the effort. So I don't know. If anybody who works on Emacs NG wants to send me an email to explain a little bit about that, I'd be happy to hear from you. Let's see. Just the usual single closing parenthesis near your look. Yeah, that kind of spam. I'm surprised it showed up this early in the stream. Usually it takes a second hour before that stuff starts showing up. Krishna says maybe a deep dive into the more theoretical aspects of Lisp, as in what is functional programming in the context of Emacs. Well, we'll definitely talk about that when it comes to Scheme, because in my opinion, Scheme is a more faithful implementation of functional programming in a Lisp style. I mean, Common Lisp can be considered to be functional because sort of like the first prerequisite is that you have to be able to pass around functions as first-class objects, so you can do higher level or higher order computation using functions as parameters. But Scheme is actually built with that in mind, and there are design decisions made for Scheme that actually sort of reinforce that. So definitely we'll talk about that when it comes to Scheme. However, I don't know how far I want to go into talking about that aspect, because I don't want to discourage people who are interested to learn Guile Scheme and don't really want to hear about functional programming. So we may have to balance that a little bit. Let's see. And I promise I'll stop saying let's see every time I look at the chat. Ramsey says, have you heard of the V programming language? Yeah, I have heard of the V programming language. And I remember back whenever it was first announced and everybody was like, this is total vaporware, because there were such like ambitious claims being made about what it could possibly do. But then the person actually did release the language, and I think it does a lot of that stuff. So I haven't tried to learn anything about it, but it sounded pretty cool. It's another one of those sort of compile to native languages with pretty good tooling. The one I'm a little bit more interested in these days is Zig. I'm still tossing up whether I'll use C or Zig for some of the stuff I want to do next year on my other channel. So we'll see about whether that happens or not. Raina says, in regard to Julia, my brother is a project lead for software consulting kind of job. There's some program they're excited about that integrates R, SQL, and some others. Cool. Krishna says, I have a Neo Mutt setup. Is there some way I can reuse that setup for MU4E? Well, definitely not whatever the client side setup is. You would have to, the only thing you can reuse probably is the local mail dir that you're syncing with some tool. But other than that, I don't think you can really reuse much. I've never used Neo Mutt though, so I can't say much about that. Crazy Chicken says, I'd recommend checking out Odin. It's an alpha, also pining to be a C replacement. I should pull these links in. So VLang, just so that people have those to look at if they want to. So a V is described as a simple language for building maintainable programs. As fast as C, C interrupt without any costs, minimal amount of allocations, built-in serialization without runtime reflection. That's kind of interesting. Compiles to native binaries without any dependencies. A simple web server is only 65 kilobytes. Now, I like that. Sort of part of what I wanted to do with the language I'm working on off and on, which I haven't done in a while, is basically produce a type of language that will compile to very small binaries, just because why not? You know, it's kind of fun. C translation work in progress. V can translate your entire C project to offer safety, simplicity, and 10 to 25x compilation speed up. And apparently they translated Doom from C to V and building it in 0.7 seconds. That's kind of cool. So anyway, here, let's drop that link to V. Whoops. Christian says, have you heard about Chicken Lisp? I think you probably mean Chicken Scheme, right? I have heard about it. I have not used it very much. Hot code reloading. That's interesting that it has that. All right, so so I also was talking about Zig. Zig is a pretty cool project. I sponsored them on GitHub. So let's drop Zig in here. And Zig also is a language that's basically trying to make it easier to write native code without the complexity of something like Rust. And if you want a comparison, I think Zig is more like C and Rust is more like C++, if you're thinking of it that way. Ronnie says, are you using project.el or projectile? I'm using both because I still haven't replaced one part of my workflow with project.el yet, and that is the project selector, because there's a hook I'm using to set up a perspective, but someone told me they actually got that working. Somebody in the Discord, I think, or was it Benoit? Anyway, I could probably get rid of projectile now, but I'm using project.el mostly at the moment. Let's see, Odin language. Now this is one I have not heard of. Ashra says Zig's drop-in C compiler abilities are amazing. Yes, absolutely. I actually was using that last year whenever I was working on some C coding. The ability to just download the Zig compiler binary off of the internet and immediately compile C code with it is pretty awesome. And the way they do that basically is they've got the LLVM C compiler sort of baked into the program, which is sort of cheating a little bit, but you know, it's very convenient to have that capability built right into that. Also makes it easier to write Zig bindings to C programs as well, or C libraries. Odin, programming done right. Odin is a general purpose programming language with distinct typing built for high performance modern systems and built-in data-oriented data types. I like that. If you haven't heard of data-oriented programming, it is sort of a mind-melting programming paradigm where you're basically trying your best to design data structures that are optimized for the CPU cache so that you don't have to reach into the RAM as much to get data for computations. So it makes your code a lot faster. So let me just, I don't know if this is a good article at all, but since we mentioned that, I'll just try to find something as a point of reference. But what I'm guessing is that yeah, data-oriented design. There we go. That's it. Let me drop this in. A lot of unrelated things here that we're talking about today, but that's sort of the point of the stream, is like, let's just go down these nice little paths here. So Odin language apparently is supposed to help with that. I know that the lead developer of Zig is also thinking a lot about it. I think he just gave a talk about that at Handmade Seattle. Was that where it was? Let's see, Handmade Seattle, Andrew Kelly, data oriented. Let me grab that. Yeah, practical guide to applying data-oriented design. Is that right? Yeah, that's it. I've not watched this yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be good. So if you want something to watch this weekend, that's something. Let's see. So what is this all about? Seems to be... Yeah, all these languages are basically just another way to use sort of modern programming concepts, but also, oh, Ginger Bill. Yeah, okay. I have heard of him before, so I guess this is the language he was working on. Yeah, basically use more modern programming language concepts, but still do like native compilation and whatnot. So it's a pretty valid path these days, I think, because people have gotten tired of writing code against runtimes that are slow. I know that Drew DeVault is also working on a language right now, but he's being very tight-lipped about it. Let's see, Drew DeVault blog. He's given some like source code examples, but let's see. Status update, is that the one? I think that there was a status update where he's talking about the programming language. Yep. Status update. There we go. Maybe it's that one. KL. Earlier blog post. Okay, this may be it. So Okay, yeah. So he's got some language that he's working on, and we'll see where that goes, I guess. But it's not really been announced other than just sort of random blog posts. Okay, let me get back to the chat. Krishna says, how does it feel to not be in Emacs all day? You mean using Stump? Honestly, it feels exactly the same because of the way I have Stump set up. It basically replicates what I'm doing in EXWM. It's been going pretty well. I don't know. I don't have any complaints. I got a couple things I need to sort of smooth out a little bit, but it's been nice to use something a little bit different. But yeah, I don't know. I still think EXWM is the best thing for me, but still needs to be. Still needs to have some problems fixed. Crazy Chicken says, functional programming in terms of Lisp sounds like Sicp definitely blew my mind. Yeah, well, that's because the structure and interpretation of computer programs is actually written with Scheme by the people who designed Scheme. So let's see, Sicp, just in case people haven't heard of that before. It's a very good book to read to understand sort of first principles of computational patterns, I think. You have the complete text in HTML. I will say I've not read this all the way through, and I've started reading it multiple times, and I literally never remember anything that I read from it. So I don't know if that's a thing to say about me or about the book, but it is what it is. Ellis says, there have been a dozen C replacement languages, nothing will. Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, C, like Crazy Chicken says, nothing will ever replace, and he knows that nothing will ever replace C. Well, yeah, because C is so ubiquitous that it's very difficult to replace it. Randa says, he just replied, it's called Databricks. I haven't used it myself. Yeah, I've heard of Databricks, but I don't know anything about it. Array programming in a C replacement sounds pretty different from C if you're referring to something like APL. Yeah. ZigCC target architecture is also great. Help me on Rust too. Yeah, the ability to compile to any architecture is pretty nice. There's a lot of cool examples on the Zig website of using Zig to compile something for a particular architecture and then using QEMU to go run it on that architecture really easily without having to like boot up a whole VM. A lot of really cool stuff that can be done there. Ronnie says, maybe check out project tab group for project.el. I believe I showed that project tab group. I think I mentioned that in a previous stream a couple weeks ago. Let's see, where is it? I don't know how audible my kid is in the background. She's a little bit unhappy right now. Luckily, you know, we've got our kid in daycare now. She's been there for maybe 2 weeks. And in that time, she's already had one cold, and we all got the cold. And then the cold went away, and now today we have another cold. So any of you with kids in daycare, you know exactly how that goes. All right, okay, so why is it not showing up right? Project tab groups, is that the right thing? Okay, yeah, that seems to be the right repo. No, I don't want notifications, thank you. Project tab groups provides a global minor mode that enhances the built-in project.el library to support keeping projects isolated in named tab groups. I will look at this again. However, tab bar mode, I like tab bar mode, but I need to spend some more time customizing it, I think. Farzan says, because of your channel, do you use Emacs mostly to edit your Emacs config and eLisp files? I made this channel because I use Emacs for everything, so it's more the other way around. I don't think this channel would exist if I didn't use Emacs for a lot of stuff, because I wouldn't really have much to talk about, I think. Any opinions on who the winner of David's Garage software drag racing is going to be? I haven't been following that at all. Ugh. Yeah, can't really get rid of that message, can we? Do you use Bongo or EMMS? I use Spotify. So I'm not really following through on the free software, free culture promise on that. I probably would try Bongo, though. I've used EMMS in the past, and I saw that Prot has some videos about Bongo, I think. So I'd probably try it if I was actually going to listen to MP3s on my computer again, but these days I mostly just use Spotify. Zig's first class types are also pretty amazing. Yeah, it's got a lot of really cool features. I like that language. Manic says, maybe an off-topic question. This is definitely not an off-topic question. Did you ever manage to get the non-geeks NVIDIA driver working for your system? I did not, because I melted my motherboard the last time I tried. Totally my fault. And I haven't tried it again because I don't want to destroy my computer one more time. So I haven't done it yet. I know that Mini KN has gotten it to work, but I think it's not without its problems. So maybe one day I'll try it again, but if I were to buy a new computer at this point with a graphics card, which I will at some point soon, I think I'm going to get an AMD. Yeah, is it AMD or ATI these days? Maybe it's ATI. Anyway, one of those I'm going to get, not NVIDIA, because NVIDIA is not very friendly to our situation here. Generics baked into the language at compile time. Yeah, exactly. The comp time stuff in Zig is very, very cool. I think it gives you some of what you get with Lisp macros to some degree. I mean, you have the ability to sort of, create stuff at compile time, but you don't really have the syntactic control, I think. Zos the Goat Herd says, I just started reading through Sicp and watching the videos of the lectures from the 80s. Yeah, definitely. Sicp YouTube. I saw that those are there and I never watched them, but they might actually be worth watching. MIT Sicp lectures. Okay, whatever. All right, so yeah, these are, go back. These are super old, but, oh no. Lovely music. Let's not get a copyright strike here. Okay, so actually let me drop a named link here. Sicp YouTube playlist. I'll drop it here as well. Yeah, this is not a very well-organized list of links, but that's fine. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Sorry, Speecily. Yeah, I'm definitely using QBrowser. I don't use Nixt at the moment. Sometime we could talk about Nixt. Yeah, this is another spammer. I don't know what's up with all these three-letter links. Report. I don't know what to say that it is. I'm not going to click the link to find out. Anyway, what was I saying? Any updates on your second channel? Also, because did you say you were on Bandcamp? Guess I should probably link to some of that stuff. Just one second. Let me find the link because I don't remember it. That's the one. So the second channel, I mean, like I said, for the more system crafter streams, I can't do the same thing for the other channel either until I get into a more stable office situation, home office situation. So that's not going to start up until next year probably, but it is definitely on my mind. So let me just drop a link into the YouTube chat, and I'll drop it here too. Oops, that's the wrong thing to do. And for those who hadn't heard about that, it's basically going to be live coding, live music production, just, sort of creative stuff, basically. It's sort of more unstructured and not really meant to be educational, but more sort of like a place to kind of hang out and do some cool stuff that I'll try to do next year. And if you wanted to hear some stuff that I've made before, music-wise, SoundCloud. Yeah, I'm on SoundCloud. And there's nothing really that special here. It's just like stuff that literally is from like 10 years ago, but it shows you the sort of areas that I delve into a little bit. Okay. So one goal would be to eventually make new background music for the System Crafters channel, so I don't play the same 4 tracks over and over and over again. This is a little bit ridiculous. Let's see. Anything worth playing right now? Oh, is it? What? Accept all cookies. Go away. Shouldn't get copyright strike for this because it's my song, but. listen to the rest of that yourself. Let's see, what else are people saying here? Tomas says those SICP videos are lovely, but horrible video and sometimes audio quality, but the content worth the pain. It's magical. Yeah, from the first 2 seconds of audio that I actually heard here, it sounds pretty shocking. Wait, I forgot to pull the link of that into... There we go, let's drop it here. So many unstructured links. Random question. When you render videos from Blender, do you use one of the scripts like BPS render or to use multiple threads? If not, I recommend it because they really speed up rendering. Oh, I probably should. I haven't looked at that because I'm just using the normal, buttons in the UI, and it's awfully